Well, Nafisa, it's an incredibly fluid situation, as you can imagine. For the last hour and a half or so, though, protesters and police dressed in riot gear have been in a very uneasy standoff here just outside the Legislative Council building, which is Hong Kong's equivalent of Parliament. As you said, there have been reports of pepper spray, possibly even tear gas being used. We haven't seen that ourselves. We have seen people being treated for what look like eye irritation injuries. But you might be able to notice that many of these protesters are dressed as if they are expecting some sort of confrontation, violent or otherwise, with police. Police, too, are in riot gear, so the situation, of course, is very tense. The actual extradition, the actual handover anniversary protest isn't expected to start for several hours yet. The fact that this protest already is getting going is an indication that there are likely to be huge numbers of people turning out for that. Primarily, of course, though, as I said, most people here are focusing on their unease with what's happening as far as the extradition bill is concerned, and the unhappiness that a lot of them have about the fact that it hasn't formally been withdrawn yet.
And Joel, have you talked to the protesters there? Except scrapping the bill on the extradition, what else they demand from the government?
Well, I mean, one of the interesting things about this protest, and particularly in contrast to what was happening here in Hong Kong in exactly the same place in 2014, is that there wasn't any real formal leadership of the protest itself. There are demands that some key activists have made, including the withdrawal of the extradition bill, also including the suspension and possible prosecution of police officers they accuse of using excessive force earlier this month, as well as the release of other protesters that they say shouldn't have been detained by those police. As far as the protesters themselves are concerned today, though, it is very unclear what they expect to happen. As I say, they are preparing for some sort of confrontation at some point with riot police. There are reports just in the last few minutes, in fact, that police numbers are being bolstered by other sources of police elsewhere in the city, and protesters themselves are, of course, still arriving as well. It is really, like I say, unclear what happens next, but the situation for now remains very tense, remains very fluid, and there is still a lot of anger at the way that protesters feel they're being treated by the police and the way the protesters feel like they have been treated by the government.